those aren't storm clouds. That is jet fuel that's being burned off by the jets from the airport a few miles away from where I work at. Hi y'all, it's Kimberly here. Today in Texas, it's a cold day. It's about 50 degrees and the temperature's dropping. I think it's going to be like in the maybe low 40s tonight, and the next few days is going to be in the 30s at night. So we're having like a cold spell here. It was like 85, 90, 91 degrees the last week and week and a half. Crazy weather. And also I'm eating ice cream. It's kind of melted. I'm going to tell a story time today, and it's about identity theft. If that's ever happened to you, it's one of the most nerve-wracking and the most mentally draining crimes that can happen to you, things that can happen to you. And this happened it was over 10, maybe about probably about 15 or 14, I don't know, years ago. And it was back when we used to use checks a lot. If some of you have never filled out a check, before everybody started using the ATM cards, everybody used checks. And you just carry the checkbook with you and you fill it out. And some people don't even know how to fill out a check anymore. I don't think I've written a check. Maybe I might have written one check in the past 6 or 7 years. And at first, whenever the ATM cards came out, I just didn't trust them. I'm the kind of person that I don't trust technology. I don't know, something new that comes out, I always have to wait a while and see what's going on. And then maybe I'll trust it. But anyway, this girl lived next door to us. Well, our neighbors lived next door, and they were going to sell their house. And we have a fence that kind of divided up our front porch opened directly to the side of their house. And we had like a weird front porch. It didn't open directly towards the front yard. It opened directly to the driveway. And we looked, when you walked out the door, you could see the side of the neighbor's house. And it usually had it had a fence there, but they tore it down because they were putting up a new fence. But then they did not put that fence up going the divider between our driveway and their yard. They just didn't put it up. And their house had a lot of big, wide open windows. And part of that fence, it kind of protected their house kind of privacy-wise, but they just didn't put it up. And you could see directly, like when we stood in our doorway, we could look right into their house. And their house was like probably 15 feet from our front door. And I just didn't like that. And I was a little upset that they didn't rebuild the fence. It was their fence, but, for privacy-wise, and I don't know. I just think that good fences make good neighbors. And I was a little upset that they didn't rebuild it. And then they moved out, and they sold it to this guy who was he was buying houses to rent them out, and just collecting the money on it. And he ended up renting it out to these, I think it was like 3 people that lived in the house, and young people. And eventually 2 of them moved out, and then this one girl was kind of left by herself. But they were about 10 years younger, I think 10 or 15 years. She was in her early 20s. And she turned out to be a horrible, horrible person, horrible neighbor. And actually, there's a backstory behind it. Her sister had been missing for years. Her sister had been, well, they really don't know to this day. They've never found her. And the kind of people that she hung around with were really not good people at all. And this girl continued to hang around the same people that the law enforcement around this area suspected that had done something with her sister. And she still hung around that same crowd. And one day she came over while I was at work, and she knocked on the door, and she told my husband, "I haven't eaten for 3 days. Do you have any food?" And he felt kind of sorry for her, and he goes, "Just a minute." And he was cooking some beans, and I think that she could smell them through the front door because the kitchen was right close to the front door. And there was like a little tiny dining room, and then it went straight into the kitchen. And he turned around to go get her like a bowl of beans that he was cooking, and she followed him into the house and just sat down at the table. And he kind of was, he just didn't know what to do, and he should have kicked her out or told her, she sat down at the table, and he gave her the beans and she ate. And then she was talking to him, and she asked what this panel was that was on the wall, and he said, "That's a security system." And she was, "Oh, okay," or something like that. And then he told me about it when it happened, or when I got home. He told me about what happened, and I told him, don't ever let her in the house again. And that, in a way, it was good that she did see the security system, because I think that the house would have been broken into. But since the security system was there, I don't think that, because they turned out to be, her and her friends turned out to be people who did substances that we can't say on YouTube, or it messes with the algorithm. But she ended up stealing a box of checks, a full box of checks, or actually I think it was 2 boxes. I can't remember now. It's been so long. And her and I guess a friend, we're not really sure which one did it, but I blamed it on her because she lived there and she was just uncooperative. I want to use a word about her so bad, but I'm not going to. But she ended up taking the checks, and somehow, I don't know how she did this, but she went to probably about 20 or more than that, probably about 50 different places, and wrote checks in my name and signed my signature, or not my signature, my name, but it was not, my handwriting, not my real signature. Her handwriting looked totally different than mine, and she was able to pass all these checks without an ID. And I called some of them after this happened, some of the businesses, and I was very upset, telling them, "How can y'all just take a check with no ID?" And they were hung up on this thing about the little check machine. They used to have a little machine, and you put a check through it, and the only thing that does is tell them that right there at that moment there's money in the bank and they can accept the check. But it doesn't tell anything about whether it's stolen, or, you need an ID. You need to be able to identify the person writing it. And I was very upset, and I complained to a lot of the businesses. And then, actually, she was arrested, or they came, and I can't remember what happened, how she got arrested. I think she got arrested on a warrant or something like that. And I had already suspected that it was her, and I don't know. I mean, this happened so long ago, but they arrested her, and I think there were some checks in her purse, our checks. And then she kept denying it. And then I think she kind of actually did kind of not really say that she did it, but that she may know who did it, or something to that effect. She made some statements like that. And the cop that I was talking with, the investigator, I was very upset, and I was like, "Why don't y'all just arrest her? our checks, you found our checks with her and all this. And they were trying to get information about the people that she hangs around with that may know something about her sister's disappearance. And she kept saying she was helping investigate it or something like that, which she didn't care at all. And it was just an ordeal trying to get her arrested. It was just unbelievable that they would not, like they were trying to build a case, or they kept saying stuff like that. And I was like, I don't care, arrest her for the stolen checks you found, or just, sometimes when you're trying to, when you're going through something like this and somebody gets arrested, the way they try to handle the investigation, or they want so much evidence or this or that, it's unbelievable that they can actually have enough evidence or some kind of evidence to arrest that person. Even if it's a small charge, at least it'll be on their record that they were arrested and that evidence was found. But a lot of times they don't want to, I don't know why, like it's not big enough for them to just make the arrest. And it would be, it really wasn't, to me, it wasn't a small crime. And I kept trying to explain it to the cop, and he was like, yeah, he understood it, but it's not a physical crime against me, and she wouldn't get very much time, or something to that effect. I can't remember. It was dragging on for months and months and months, and they were trying to use that as leverage. They were trying to use our stolen check case against her as leverage for investigating her sister's disappearance, because she was like not really telling them enough information, because she kept hanging around the same people, and it was just mind-boggling to me that she would do that. And it was still real strange because she still lived next door to us, but come to find out, she had lost her job. She ended up selling her car, so she was just squatting in the house. The utilities were all turned off. And one day somebody came over and asked, "Are you the girl that sells cigarettes?" And I was like, "No." And she turned and looked at the other house and pointed to her, but she used the word cigarettes in the place of something else. I knew what she was talking about. And I think I told her, "Don't ever come around here again or I'll call the cops," or I said something like that to her. And there were several incidents with a lot of people coming and going for just a few minutes and, leaving. And these were all different types of people, not just, young, she was in her 20s. So why would she be hanging around with, these older men that, I don't know. It's just I told the cop that. I was like, there's something going on in that house, something that she's doing. She stole checks from us, and she was just a bad person. And eventually, some of her friends came over, and they had one of those water meter tools, and they turned the water on. My ex-husband saw what's happening. They were using that tool to turn the water on for her utilities, and he called the utility company, and they charged her with stealing utilities, and they turned it off, and she just wouldn't answer the door. And eventually she did leave, but it was, this went on for months, for them investigating, trying to use our case against the information they're trying to get about this missing girl. And it was just an ordeal. We had to go and file affidavits and, take off time from work. And when something like that happens, the amount of time you have to spend going to banks and doing this and that, you gotta sign all kinds of paperwork and everything. And it was just very tedious and very, it went on for months, and I was always afraid that I was going to get stopped or be accused of, stealing or doing some crime that she committed, because she used my identity. So I was worried about that. It's, I don't know. Going through something like that is just one of the most horrible things. Because even today, I just worry about, what if something is lingering from that and they find something. They actually found our checks, some more checks, in a purse of some drug addict, like 6 months or a year later. And she'd probably traded them for who knows what, and just it was just a horrible thing to go through. I'm kind of glad that we don't use checks anymore. I just use my card now, or cash. Okay, well, thank you, and I'm gonna finish eating my ice cream. Thank you very much.